The growing population of underinsured Americans, payer concerns around copay and patient assistance programs, health reform's impact on pharma strategies. How are pharmaceutical companies reevaluating their approaches to copay and patient assistance programs? And what additional changes may be required to maintain success? Join us to find out. In the Know starts now. Hello and welcome to In the Know, your source for insight and analysis on the issues that matter to our dynamic healthcare market. I'm your host, Gina Clark. Today we look at the effect that underinsured Americans are having on the U.S. healthcare market. We'll discuss new challenges and obstacles manufacturers face in setting up and running their assistance programs, as well as the variety of programs designed to meet differing needs. Here to offer insight on these topics is Morris Lumpkin, Senior Director of Business Development for Lash Group. Morris, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Gina.
Before we dive into the effect that the underinsured are having on the U.S. healthcare market and the issues that these patients must confront, can you give us a little background on how many Americans this represents and how that number has changed in recent years?
Sure. The most commonly cited number of individuals who are underinsured in the U.S. is 25 million. Now, this comes from studies that are 3 or 4 years old prior to the economic downturn, so you can make a safe assumption that along with the economic downturn and continued payer pressures, that this number is significantly higher today, probably up in the 40 to 50 million range.
What approaches have pharmaceutical manufacturers taken to help these patients receive appropriate access to medications?
Manufacturers have really stepped up to the plate, and they've been employing really a three-pronged approach to supporting the underinsured. Depending on the product profile and the patient population, they'll employ either one, two, or all three of these strategies. The first one is commercial copay assistance, which is direct assistance from the manufacturer to pay for patients who have commercial insurance for their copay out-of-pocket costs. The second is independent copay charity, so manufacturers will donate an amount of money to independent charities on a disease state basis, not on a product specific basis. And then the independent charities will administer those programs and provide assistance to patients within a certain disease state. Now that is the only way today that underinsured individuals with federally funded insurance plans like Medicare can be assisted with their copays. And thirdly, manufacturers have been expanding their patient assistance or free drug programs to account for the increased number of underinsured. Traditionally, manufacturer patient assistance programs are truly for those patients without insurance, but now they are looking at patients who have insurance but may have a significant copay. So you'll see manufacturer free drug programs with patients who might have a 50% coinsurance, and they'll deem those folks functionally uninsured and provide free product to them.
What have been the primary obstacles or challenges for pharmaceutical manufacturers in establishing or administering patient assistance and copay assistance programs?
I think it's awareness, both internally and externally, and by internally I mean within the four walls of the manufacturer, building awareness within the company about the need and the complexities of those needs. It's not as simple as mass producing coupons and distributing them out to the mass market. There are certain strategies that make sense for particular products. So having a very specific strategy, depending on your product type and disease state, is critical. Then externally, it's building awareness among patients and providers. So making sure they're aware of the programs, how to use them, how to contact them, because the need is great. 40 million underinsured, but there is a sense within the manufacturers that patients are not taking as much advantage as they could of these programs.
What considerations do manufacturers need to think through as they determine the type of assistance programs they will offer?
This space is changing so rapidly and so quickly. Manufacturers are again, stepping up to the plate and building programs and implementing them at a very fast rate. However, a lot of times they're leaping to the answer before they fully understand the equation. And by that, I mean they're jumping to the mechanism of how they're going to offer that copay assistance, whether it be a debit card or a check to the physician or a pharmacy card, without thinking through the implications of their particular product and patient population.
To what extent do manufacturers need to work more closely with physicians and pharmacists to drive awareness and proper participation in these programs?
Yeah, as I mentioned, awareness is key. I think there's several different mediums to get the word out. Obviously, product websites are a great resource to have information about your program, how to contact it, how to go through the process. Is a great place where physicians and their staff always go to check for programs like this. Also things like webcasts and using field force personnel like reimbursement managers to get the word out in the public arena I think is critical. And then also partnering with state societies and GPOs within that particular disease state can help drive awareness as well.
How have manufacturers had to adjust their approach to assistance programs in light of the current national economic climate?
So they've certainly stepped up to the plate by either establishing new programs for the underinsured, or if they already have programs for the underinsured, they're expanding the criteria. So the manufacturers are responding to the economic downturn by really just stepping up to the plate and investing in those programs significantly.
Why do you think manufacturers have stepped up by expanding their programs, especially given their own financial challenges?
If patients don't have access to these critical therapies, then everybody loses. The patients lose and the manufacturer loses. So it's critical that the manufacturer invest in these types of programs to ensure ongoing patient access for better outcomes for everybody involved.
What has been the payer reaction to the increased utilization of assistance programs? And in what ways might this impact coverage decisions in the future?
When you first approach a payer and talk to them about copay assistance programs, the reaction is usually pretty negative because they leap to conclusions about reducing incentives for their copay structure. But after you provide them with more context and information about the different types of programs and how they're designed, you can change their perception. We convened an ad board with about 10 payer medical and pharmacy directors about a year ago. And when they walked in the room, as we expected, they had a very negative kind of baseline perception of copay assistance programs because of the reduction of those incentives. But then after a half-hour, 45-minute conversation about the different types of programs and how they're designed and how they can help keep patients on therapy for a longer period of time and avoid drop-off, then the payers started to understand a little bit more the benefits to everyone for copay assistance programs.
The Affordable Care Act is scheduled to expand health care coverage to 32 million additional Americans by 2016. What impact will this have on manufacturer assistance programs? And how are manufacturers factoring health care reform into their long-term strategies?
Well, we see the impact of healthcare reform really will have two significant impacts as it relates to support services and copay assistance. First, a lot of the individuals who will be moving from an uninsured situation to an insured situation, whether it be through the state exchanges or to Medicaid, are currently receiving assistance from manufacturers on their free drug or patient assistance programs. So those manufacturer programs will need to shift their focus a bit, and because they will be looked on as a key resource for information and support as those patients need to understand what their new options are from a coverage standpoint, and they're going to need to be handheld over to those options and make sure they have access to care moving forward. Secondly, healthcare reform, obviously bringing those 32 million newly insured individuals, more insured individuals will equate to more underinsured individuals. So manufacturers, as they think through their assistance programs, they will really need to focus on their copay assistance strategy, doing a lot of modeling and understanding what this new population coming to their programs will do to them from a resource, operational, and budgeting standpoint.
Can you share any best practices or examples of pharma companies that are approaching their assistance programs in ways that are producing measurable, positive results?
I think the best example of programs that have the most impact are those which are fully integrated and provide wraparound services to patients and physicians and their staff, and don't come in a segregated fashion. And by that I mean a program which provides all of the access services that a patient may need. So that could be reimbursement support, copay assistance, patient assistance, adherence services. Having all those through one single program really leads to some significant outcomes, as opposed to potentially asking the patient to fill out one extra form if you have your copay program separate or if you have your adherence program separate. That's when you can patients can fall through the cracks.
So what do you see on the horizon in this space? What do manufacturers need to keep an eye on, even as they remain focused on their current day-to-day operations?
So healthcare reform, my comments there are absolutely critical to keep an eye on that and understand how your programs need to evolve to meet those needs. But also as technology evolves, I think there'll be some significant kind of changes in how copay assistance programs are administered and adjudicated. You know, you'll see more and more web-based type programs, as well as advanced technologies like smart apps and that can be adjudicated on your smartphone.
Morris, great information on a timely subject for so many Americans. Thank you for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We'll be back soon with another all-new webisode. Until then, if it's on your mind, it's In the Know.